This lesson is going to show you how to subtract two integers. But first we're going to do some review exercises. So the directions say solve each of the following. So go ahead and pause the video and try 1 through 6. And then we're going to go through the answers. Number 1, -7 plus 5. We have a negative and a positive, so I'm going to subtract the two. 7 minus 5, which is 2, and the bigger number is negative, so it's a -2. 8 plus a -5. I'm going to subtract 8 minus 5 is 3. The sign of the bigger number is positive, so my answer is positive. -9 plus a -3. Both of them are negative. So I'm going to add those two numbers. 9 plus 3 is 12, and since they're both negative, my answer is negative. Number 4, -19 plus a -8. So I'm going to add those. 19 plus 8 is 27, and they're both negative, so it's a -27. Number 5, 20 plus a -9. So I'm going to subtract 20 minus 9 is 11, and the sign of the bigger number is positive, so we have a positive 11. Number 6, -11 plus a -2. They're both negative, so I'm going to add them. 11 plus 2 is 13, and since they're both negative, my answer is a -13. Okay, let's move on to subtraction now. So whenever we subtract two integers, I always like to use the click rule. So, for example, if there's one subtraction sign, like looking at number 1, you have 3 minus 5, I always like to do this. I call it the click. I'm going to change this minus sign to a plus by going click, and then I'm going to do another click for the negative. So this is really like saying 3 plus a -5. And we already learned about negatives. So if we have a positive 3 and a -5, we're going to subtract those two numbers because now we're adding. So that's 2. And then take the sign of the bigger number, which is the 5, which is negative. So we have a -2. Now let's try number 2. Again, we're subtracting -2 minus 3, so I'm going to do click. So now I have -2 plus a -3. So remembering from addition, I'm going to add those two together. 2 plus 3 is 5, since they're both negative. And also, since they're both negative, my answer has to be negative. Okay, now let's look at, well, what happens if the problem has two subtraction signs that are right next to each other? So between, for example, number 3, between the -3 and the 7. So if there's two negatives, the two negatives turn into a plus sign. And we're still going to use that same click. So in the middle right here for number 3, it's going to go -3 minus a -7, and I'm going to go click. So now that becomes -3 plus 7. So I'm going to subtract 7 minus 3 is 4, and take the sign of the bigger number, which is the 7, which is positive, so positive 4. Let's try number 4 now. I have 2 minus a -5, so I'm going to go click. So that's 2 plus 5, which is just 7.